explain understanding, and the person that explain understanding COP16 and general agenda is Cefa, and at and 1 minute to the group is finally list. Please wait a minute and begin this important session, session 4, understanding COP16.
Will I start? Okay.
Okay. Begin, Cefa?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Sure.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And the first part of the session 4 is Cefa, and she explained understanding COP16 and the general agenda of COP16. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wasn't very sure. Okay. Can you see my screen? You can? Can someone confirm? Okay, okay. Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Cefa. I'm one of Gibbon's policy co-coordinators. I come from the Philippines. I'm an indigenous youth. And I'm happy to join you today for our capacity building session, which will be focusing on understanding COP16 and also listening to perspectives from Latin America about the significance of this COP. Okay, so we have interpretation for those who might not yet be in the channels. We have interpretation to Spanish and French. So please change your language channel if you haven't yet. Okay, we will start. Today I'll be presenting a little bit more about the COP of the Convention on Biological Diversity that is happening next month, very soon. So first, just to begin, we again, we're here preparing for COP16, which is known as the 16th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. It's also called the UN Biodiversity Conference. So this means it's the meeting of all of the parties or the countries that have signed on to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So it's the 16th time that they're meeting as a COP. And if you remember from one of the first sessions, the COP is the highest decision-making body of the convention. It meets roughly every 2 years, except during the pandemic when it was postponed. And the COP meets to establish agendas, commitments, decisions, and frameworks of action to achieve the 3 objectives of the convention, which are the conservation of biodiversity, the sustainable use of biodiversity, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of genetic resources, right? So this is something we learned in one of the first few sessions. So COP16, again, is the 16th meeting of the COP, and it will be happening from October 21 to November 1 of this year in Cali, in Colombia. So this is Colombia, who will be hosting the COP. Okay. So we also know, right, that before the COP, there have been meetings of the subsidiary bodies, which you also learned in the first few sessions. We have, for example, SBSTA, which is the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice, which discusses some scientific and technical agenda items. And then we have SBI, or the subsidiary body on implementation, which discusses some items regarding implementation of the convention, like resource mobilization, capacity development, and other things. So in the road towards COP16 next month, there's a lot that's already happened, right? For example, no, okay, let's start from the beginning, which was the previous COP, which was COP15, which happened in Montreal, Canada. We had a big delegation of youth there, and it was a very historic COP because it adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which was discussed yesterday, right? So that was in December 2022. And since then, there has been a lot of things going on. First of all, at the national level, we have countries getting to work to update and revise their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, or NBSAPs. And this has been continuing, and they will be showing their progress in the next COP, but also some have not yet finished. I heard that there are 20 countries that have finished their NBSAPs. Aside from the NBSAP revision process happening at the national level, we also had a number of expert group meetings to discuss indicators for the Global Biodiversity Framework, resource mobilization, and other topics like synthetic biology and others. This is also, during early 2023, we also got news that Turkey, which was supposed to be the host of COP16, declined. And so they got to work to find a new host for COP16. We also had meetings of the Council of the Global Environmental Facility to discuss the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. And there were intersessional meetings, in particular SBSTA 25, that happened in October 2023. And around this time, in the beginning of 2024, we also got news that Colombia agreed to host COP16. So you can kind of see that the time to prepare for the next COP is a bit shorter than is usual, because there was this event of Turkey declining because of an earthquake that happened in their country, and the time also it took to find that another country that would host COP16. So in 2024, they continued the process. We had another meeting of the SBSTA, so SBSTA 26, and we had a meeting of the Subsidiary Body on Implementation, or SBI. And in between that, just last August, this is not officially in the COP process, but we had a significant event called the International Youth Conference on Biodiversity, or the IYCB, which gathered young people all around the world to talk about important issues about biodiversity. And then, so now we're here, very close to the 16th Conference of the Parties of the CBD, which is happening in October 2024. Right before that, we have the 5th meeting of SBI in Cali, Colombia, and we will also have a Global Youth Summit on Biodiversity right before COP16. So this is kind of the road, and we'll move on to examining exactly how to look at this 16th COP, okay? So the COP16 has the theme Peace with Nature. When you look into the website of the host, they explain this by saying the theme Peace with Nature is a call for reflection to improve the relationship we have with the environment, and to rethink an economic model that does not prioritize the extraction, overexploitation, and pollution of nature. So this is how they see the meaning of the theme from the COP hosts. And this is the COP logo, inspired by the Inirida flower, which is an endemic species to Colombia. So you can see it here. And they say that the petals represent the 23 targets of the Global Biodiversity Framework, or the Biodiversity Plan, in the 13 ecoregions of Colombia, and it's known as the eternal flower. So it's able to survive kind of extreme weather. And so I think it's meant to symbolize also resilience amidst the triple planetary crisis. Something like that is how they explain it. So when we look at how this COP is being framed by the presidency and by those talking about it. So first there is the theme Peace with Nature. There's also this framing of COP of the people and COP of reconciliation from the COP hosts. So this puts emphasis on the role of rights holders and people, indigenous peoples, local communities, Afro descendants, and others. For example, youth, children and youth, and their role in conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. And it's also interesting to explore what this means to our members from Latin America, which we'll look at in the second half of this session. Right? What does it mean really to have COP of reconciliation and COP of the people? We also are coming to this COP with the important moment of turning agreement into action. So we're coming from the adoption of the Global Biodiversity Framework. There's a lot of pressure on the convention to turn this agreement into action and make sure that it's being implemented. One of the things that has been the weakness of the CBD in the past has really been that even though we have strong policies, there hasn't been enough implementation. So this COP should deliver really momentum to implement the Global Biodiversity Framework. Okay, so there's also been framing around the interconnectedness between biodiversity and climate change. This is something we've been noticing again from the COP presidency, with messaging on the interrelatedness of biodiversity and climate change, and also on biodiversity as sort of providing solutions to climate change, and also looking at trade-offs when it comes to climate action, when it comes to biodiversity. So I think more than other COPs, there is a bit of a bit stronger messaging around biodiversity and climate change that we should look at. This is also the year, it happens to be the year where the 3 Rio conventions are having their own COPs. So aside from CBD COP16, the UN Convention to Combat Desertification is also having its COP16, and the UNFCCC, or the Climate Convention, is having its COP29. So it's a big year for I guess for environmental policy. And then of course this is also a COP that's happening in Latin America. So people are looking to see how Latin America will carry this leadership for COP16, but also, for example, COP30 of the UNFCCC, which is happening in Brazil next year. Brazil is also the current chair of the G20 group of countries. And then, for example, we can also examine how they will be using the Escazú Agreement, which is a regional agreement in Latin America that talks about participation, access to justice, and access to information when it comes to the environment. So there's a lot of things that we can look at this COP through the lens of, right? And this is all happening this year. Okay. So what else will I say? So there is also, so with this framing, it's important to look at different opportunities and risks. For example, I think one of the biggest opportunities might be the strong framing around the role of people and human rights coming from the presidency, and also the role of culture and environmental defenders. So we'll hear more about that later. But also, I think there are risks, for example, which are always present in terms of avoiding kind of greenwashing, avoiding avoiding market-based approaches being promoted by businesses, and also big conservation NGOs that might be continuing business as usual. Also, we need to be aware in case there are there are ways that people are simplifying the issue of biodiversity, which is a very complex one, especially with looking at it alongside climate change. So sometimes there is a tendency to equate these two when there are different nuances between the two spaces and the two issues. Okay, so those are some things to keep in mind when looking at this COP. So the COP16 president is Susana Muhammad. She's the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Colombia. The COP president has the role of providing political leadership to the COP. She will be facilitating the parties in the negotiations, trying to move the negotiations forward and consulting different countries. So she has an important job in kind of ensuring that this COP will be a successful COP, along, of course, with the host country, Colombia. So we will see how it goes. But yeah, so this is important because they will also set the tone for the next 2 years in terms of biodiversity action in the world, right? So this is a quote that we got from the COP website. She said, "If we succeed in transforming our relationship with nature, as well as our production and consumption practices, and get collective actions to promote life instead of destroying it, we will be addressing the most important challenges of our time." So yeah, let's see how Colombia will kind of take the presidency role. Now, going a bit more into the COP16 context, I mentioned earlier that this is the first COP following the adoption of the GBF. And so one important thing during this COP is that countries are now expected to have updated their national targets, their national biodiversity targets, or their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, right? To align them with the GBF. So this COP will look at the progress of countries towards doing that. But based on what I've seen also from the past SBI, is that many countries have not yet finished doing so. So we will see how, again, how countries are progressing in this matter. And you also saw the calendar that many meetings have been happening in the past. So COP is actually just the final stage of decision making. And in the intersessional period, and by this we mean the period between the COPs, there have been negotiations going on. So some of the aspects in terms of implementation include negotiations on resource mobilization and the financial mechanism. So how biodiversity action is being funded, including by the current financial mechanism, which is through the Global Environment Facility. You also we had negotiations on the monitoring framework of the GBF. So the indicators that will tell us whether we're making progress in implementing the GBF. This was not finished in the negotiations at COP15. And so COP16 is expected to adopt the final monitoring framework and the indicators that countries will use. Another agenda item that was discussed are the tools and guidance for GBF implementation. So they were looking at the global biodiversity framework, seeing which aspects we don't have yet guidance on, and seeing where we can get that kind of guidance and tools, especially because the global biodiversity framework has many new aspects that were not in the Aichi targets. For example, regarding human rights and equity that we as Gibbons advocated for, but also other gaps in terms of implementation guidance. So they're looking at what is needed there. They're also looking at planning, monitoring, reporting, and review mechanisms. So this includes the national reports, NBSAPs, but then also the global review of collective progress towards implementation of the GBF that will happen in a few years. And then, for example, they're also looking at cooperation with other conventions, among others. So these are some of the things that countries were already negotiating partially and will continue negotiating at COP16 towards coming to decisions, right? Aside from that, they also had negotiations on specific technical issues, including biodiversity and climate change. We have marine and coastal biodiversity. We have biodiversity and health, which is looking at a global plan of action on biodiversity and health. We also had negotiations on synthetic biology, sustainable wildlife management, among other topics. Okay, so there's actually a big agenda, and we'll look at it more closely later. And then there were also negotiations on two separate things. One is digital sequence information, which is about kind of making sure that we have a mechanism that can share benefits fairly and equitably, from benefits from DSI. So, this is basically digital genetic sequences that are being used to make profits by some. So making sure that benefits are shared equally there. And then also negotiations on the program of work and institutional arrangements regarding traditional knowledge and indigenous peoples and local communities in the context of the CBD. So this is what we call in general the discussions on Article 8J, which is the article of the CBD that talks about the role of traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities in achieving the objectives of the convention. Okay, so we're coming to this COP with all of those having been partially negotiated already. So like I said, parties in the negotiations at COP16, parties will aim to come to consensus on recommendations coming from those meetings. They will have to agree on all of the things that are being discussed. There's a lot of text in brackets, which means language in the decisions that are not yet agreed and will need to be agreed. That's what we mean by in brackets. And so, yeah, parties will have to remove all of those brackets and make decisions at the end. That is kind of the challenge also of the COP presidency, right? Outside of the negotiations, there will also be many spaces like side events, pavilions, for discussing all kinds of things about biodiversity. And also we have the CBD's first green zone, which is something actually that is practiced in the climate convention. So here it will be a space that will be used to bring the negotiations, I suppose, to the public, and also bring the views from the public into the negotiations. I think that's the intent behind the green zone. Okay. Do we have any questions so far? Please put any questions in the chat and I'll try to answer them later. Okay. So we have a big agenda. There's actually more than 30 items on the COP16 agenda, which will be really a challenge, especially for small delegations to follow everything. We know that there is it's not a very equal playing field, because some countries are able to send more delegates to follow more items than other countries, and this are all they all in many ways require specific expertise. So yeah, it will be a challenge to first discuss all of these in the time that is there, but also to try to ensure that the countries have have an equal say in how these negotiations are going, and are able to attend all of those negotiations that they want to attend, right? So I'll try to give a bit of an overview of what's going to be discussed. I mentioned some of them earlier, including NBSAPs. We have also planning, monitoring, reporting, and review. We have resource mobilization. We have capacity building, and knowledge management. Item 13 is on cooperation with other conventions. We have an agenda item talking about communication, education, and public awareness. And an item talking about the scientific and technical needs to support GBF implementation. This is what I was mentioning earlier about guidance. And then also an item talking about mainstreaming of biodiversity within and across sectors. So those are some of the more implementation related items. And then there are also a number of scientific and technical issues, including the diverse values of biodiversity. So this is going to focus, I think, on the values assessment that was produced by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, or IPBES. We also have an item on sustainable wildlife management, marine and coastal biodiversity and island biodiversity, invasive alien species, biodiversity and health, plant conservation, synthetic biology, and biodiversity and climate change. So these are a few of the scientific and technical items. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have a separate discussion on digital sequence information, discussions on Article 8J on traditional knowledge and indigenous peoples and local communities, trying to develop a new program of work on this. And then also, there are a few items here related to the CBD and the COP itself. So looking at the program of work of the COP, but also reviewing effectiveness of the processes of the CBD and reviewing, yes, so those kinds of things. So there's in total, there are 31 items, including some of the more organizational matters like adopting the agenda, opening the meeting, closing the meeting, and things like that. So we have a big agenda. And on Given side, we have also a policy team that will be focusing on following these agenda items. Okay. So I'm going to answer Mark's question just now in the chat. So we have a list from 1 to 31. I'll actually link it. Maybe I'll try to find the link right now. But I only put the ones that are more substantive. Others are more, like I said, organizational matters, like opening of the meeting, approving the agenda, things like that. So those are the ones that are missing from this list. Let me share it now so that you can see. Okay. So yeah, these are some of the ones that are more substantive in nature and that we'll be following closely. Okay, so that's about the COP. Let me know if there are any questions. So I'll go a little bit into the role of youth at the COP, but not so much into the details because we will go to the details in the next meeting. So, of course, it's...
Thank you very much, Sefa. But I think it's time to answer some questions.
Okay.
I don't know if one person put in the chat or question for Sefa for the understanding the COP16. She give the route, all the points, the president of the COP. There are some person that wants to do a question.
There are none so far. I don't know, Viviana, if you can give me like 10 minutes more, just like to finish.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. Sorry if I'm going over time. I'll try to not go so fast, but okay. So we know that Given plays the role of being the international coordination platform for youth participation in the CBD. And then but aside from that, we are a global coalition of young people and youth organizations acting together for living in harmony with nature. At COP16, we will be aiming to do a few things like strengthening, including before the COP itself. This capacity building, for example, is one of the ways that we are aiming to strengthen the capacities and leadership of youth and children to participate in and influence COP16. So another Another aim of us participating is to highlight youth as strategic allies in the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework through advocacy, campaigning, activism, actions, communication, and other related activities. So another is to also kind of recognize the role of that ancestral communities play in conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. Also, since Colombia is really first a mega diverse country, but also a pluricultural, multi-ethnic and biodiverse and multi-ethnic country. And of course, create spaces and opportunities for the meaningful participation of children and youth within and outside Colombia in the spaces that are there. Okay. Like I mentioned, Given plays the role of coordinating youth participation in the CBD, including things like policy, communications, actions, and side events. But we will talk about this more in the next session. So we will not go into detail on the youth on like the concrete things of and spaces where you can engage. So please wait for the answers for this for the next session. But I will take some time to discuss a little bit more about some priority issues that we will be looking at in terms of the policy for COP16. Okay, so let's see. Hopefully you can read this. It's a bit small, but so the policy team is in the process of preparing a brief on our priorities for consultation. But in essence, some of the key issues that we've been looking at are these four. First are NBSAPs, also planning, monitoring, reporting, and review, resource mobilization, and biodiversity and climate change. So I'll go through each of them. For NBSAPs, we've been looking first at the quality of engagement of young people in the NBSAP processes. We know that our chapters and other youth organizations in the different countries have been engaging and working to engage in the processes that their countries are doing to revise NBSAPs, right? So we want to look at how that has been going and share how that has been going from our perspective, and continue to call for integration of youth priorities in and also relevant indicators in the NBSAPs. Knowing that not every country has finished this process yet, so there is kind of still time to make sure that they are listening to the young people in their country and on their priorities. We also are in this regard strongly advocating for the strong implementation of key aspects of the GBF, including Target 22, which talks about meaningful participation of young people, indigenous peoples, and local communities, women and girls, and persons with disabilities, access to participation and justice, and the full protection of environmental defenders. So trying to push for that in the implementation of this target at the national level. And also, of course, some more cross-cutting elements like intergenerational equity and human rights, and making sure that those are channeled into the NBSAPs. So that's one thing that we'll be looking at. The second thing here that I put is on planning, monitoring, reporting, and review. Of course, NBSAPs are part of this, but we are also looking at the monitoring framework. So the indicators that are telling us whether we're making progress or not. So currently in the monitoring framework, there are gaps that we might not be able to fill by COP16, but there should be a process to fill those gaps. For example, there are no suitable indicators yet for outcomes or like quantitative measures for youth participation, among others. And we want to have a clear way forward on how those gaps will be filled after COP16, if not at COP16, right? We're also pushing for the collection of age disaggregated data. So this means that, for example, you're collecting data on people, you want to collect data also on their age, as well as gender, for example, and for Indigenous people and local communities, so that you get a better idea of how young people are being differentiatedly impacted by certain action, right? And also making sure that Target 22 itself has strong indicators. We are also pushing for the recognition of youth and other rights holders' contributions in the mechanisms for reporting and review. So when after the NBSAPs, countries have to report back, right, on their progress on their implementation through national reports. And we are pushing also for youth, for the recognition of on-ground contributions, collective actions, youth-led initiatives in those reports and through other mechanisms for reporting and review. Moving now to the third item that we'll be watching closely, so on resource mobilization and the financial mechanism. For this item, we have been pushing for more direct access, more accessible funding for actors like Indigenous peoples, local communities, women and youth, and making sure that resources are flowing down to the ground where implementation actually happens. So that's been really important for us. Another is closing the gaps in terms of inclusivity and accessibility in the financial mechanisms that are existing, including the GEF, the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, or the GBFF, and the discussions for a potential new fund. So making sure that those are all kind of moving forward, in a way that ensures inclusivity and accessibility. The third, we are also kind of presenting strong concerns about the negative impacts of biodiversity offsets and credits as a way to close the biodiversity finance gap. Also criticizing the strong focus on increasing market-based approaches. So in terms of the bigger picture on finance, this is what we're looking at, and also ensuring strong social and environmental safeguards when it comes to the funding that is being mobilized for biodiversity. So these are to ensure that, funding is not going to projects and initiatives that could have negative impacts on people and on nature, right? So that's on funding. And then the last topic I'll talk about for now, in terms of specific agenda items, is biodiversity and climate change. Here we're looking at preventing false solutions. So things that are framed as solutions for climate change, but that actually have negative impacts on people and biodiversity, and also preventing greenwashing in this context. We are also trying to ensure strong social and environmental safeguards for nature-based solutions, which is a term that can be good, but is also in other cases being misused for false solutions like monoculture plantations that are actually harming biodiversity, even though they are being framed again as a solution for climate. So trying to ensure that that is not happening on the ground when applying nature-based solutions, and also examining, looking more closely at the evidence of the impacts of market-based approaches, carbon credits, carbon offsets, and things like that, making sure that we are making decisions based on evidence, and pushing for the COP, I suppose, to look at this evidence more closely and in a more critical way. Okay, and I think this is my last slide. So aside from those more specific items, we are of course continuing to be guided by the collective youth vision that has been gathered through the years for a just and equitable society living in harmony with nature, and the collective youth call for transformative systemic change that is needed if we are to address biodiversity loss. Some cross-cutting elements that we are looking at across the agenda is intergenerational equity, youth participation and intersectionality, human rights, diverse values, transformative change, and transformative education. And also kind of now looking at the role of arts and culture in biodiversity, and of course, also examining our perspective on the theme peace with nature, because yeah, I think there is a lot to be said about peace with nature, including the relationship between peace, environment, and also, for example, with regards to environmental defenders. And finally, we continue to be guided by values and principles that have come out from our given community, that always continues to guide us both in policy and also in the actions that we do. So I think I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sefa. Excuse me because you don't finish and I say you finish
No.
and excuse me. But okay, there are some questions for you. There are one question of Dennis Dutton that say, how can youth be involved in giving outside of COP16?
Thank you for your question. So we on the ground operate through our chapters mainly. So if you have a chapter in your country, you can join those chapters, or you can also register to be a member and be part of our communication channels to receive the information on exactly on how to get involved outside of COP16. Most of our work actually is happening really on the ground by young people in their countries who are doing work on conservation, sustainable use, and also advocacy and decision making at all levels, from the global, regional, national, and local level. So yeah, I encourage you to register.
There are of this person of Dennis, there are it will this session of financing mechanisms and resource mobilization be live streamed to record at COP.
Thank you for that question. I'll try to, let me take a moment to look for the website actually of where they will share some of the live stream sessions. So during COP, there are sessions called plenaries. Oh, yeah, okay. I thought it was muted. There are sessions called plenary sessions, which are public and live streamed on YouTube. Okay, so these are when this is the opening of the meeting. It's also when they take stock from the smaller negotiations in the middle of the meeting, and also towards the end of the meeting. So plenary sessions are actually open to all and can be viewed by all. But then there are smaller negotiation meetings called contact groups and other names, and those are close to the public and won't be shared. But you will be able to kind of follow the progress even virtually through the progress in plenary. So when I find it, I'll share the COP16.
There are other of BRICS Martillo Dumas. When are national reports addressed during COP? When
yeah.
national?
So thank you for that question. National reports are one of the planning, monitoring, reporting, and review mechanisms. So agenda item 10, if I'm not mistaken. In particular, COP16 will be approving the template for the next national report, the 7th national report, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so in particular for this COP, that is the discussion around national reports. But in general, national reports, for your information, are expected from countries roughly every 4 or 5 years, if I'm not wrong. So they will probably be reviewed by COP17 in time for what we call the global review of collective progress towards implementing the framework. So that's when they'll examine all of the national reports and see, are we on track to meeting the targets by 2030, or do we need to change anything, adjust, and things like that. So at COP17, they will look at the national reports themselves more closely.
I see other. My question of Lorena Gomez is, what do you think about the intergenerational approach being focused only towards the future? What if we consider intergenerational justice, considering what our ancestors have gone through and how repairing will restore bonds with lands and within families or communities?
Thank you for that very interesting question. So absolutely, intergenerational justice should really be about first equity between past, present, and future generations. But we also see it actually as equity between older and younger generations living in the present. Gibbon has done a lot of work to explore this concept of intergenerational equity, which is parallel but might not necessarily be the same, as you say, as how intergenerational equity is being looked at in different spaces today, which is kind of making sure that future generation focused more on this aspect of future generations and making sure that future generations needs are being met, right? So I think this question is very interesting. For example, also in the context of COP of reconciliation, right? Like, what does that mean for us? In my view, I think it should also really examine kind of inequities between, like historical inequities between past and present generations, but also, for example, between global North and global South and things like that. And me personally, I also view intergenerational equity exactly like you say, kind of from how do you say, the perspective um of ancestral lands, for example, and ancestral knowledge and things like that, and making sure that we how do you say, are looking at equity between yeah, just kind of having a broad view of intergenerational equity that encompasses those things, like I think it was mentioned in the first session, like these things of historical debt, and also kind of in a good light also the what we owe or what we received from past generations, and what we can pass on to future generations that is good. In my case, as an indigenous person, like I look at this as really kind of indigenous knowledge and wisdom, and making sure that we are transferring intergenerationally transmitting traditional knowledge among indigenous peoples and local communities in a respectful and self-determined way, and learning from that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sefa. It is necessary working in this to not lose the traditionals. I think it's the two last question because it's time to the break. The question was does giving have a list of recommended sessions to attend during the COP16, whether in blue or green zone?
I think we will hopefully get to this in the session next Saturday. So if you can be a little bit patient with these particular things, we do have a list that Gibbon is handling, and also work that our partners are also having, side events and things like that. So I think we can give a better overview of this by next session, not in this session. And then just excuse me, Bibiana, there's a last question here. If
Yeah, there are the last question, and the last question is of Lorena. Did I fully agree? Thank you. One more question, invitation from a Colombia point of view, actually considering how peace, conflict are connected with nature, war, or illegal resource extractions, and how do you see we can bring together these two conversations, which are traditionally separated?
Thank you, Lorena. So I think with the theme Peace with Nature, it's a good opportunity to really examine those things. So I think that is also another aspect of Peace with Nature. Is this connection between conflict and war and nature, right? We know that war has many impacts on biodiversity and climate. We also know that there is currently, for example, a war on environmental defenders that is going on, who are being targeted for the work that they're doing to defend indigenous people's lands. There's also, for example, the situations of conflict that young people are experiencing on the ground. So Given has been doing some work on peace, conflict, and the environment with our partner Peace Nexus. I think Sudha and Shruti, if you know them, you can also get in touch with them. I think we will be looking at spaces during COP16 to have these important conversations and continue these conversations on peace and conflict, which goes very well with the theme. But yeah, Given is actually doing work on that. I won't be able to speak on it at length today, but thank you for that question.
Thank you,
And
Sefa.
yeah,
I think no more question because it's the time to the break.
thank you.
But I don't know if there are a group photo, Mark, if you say.
Yes. Hi everyone. If you could open your camera for a quick group photo, and then we'll have a 5-minute break as well. So I have 3 screens now to take the photo. So please be patient with me as I capture your beautiful faces. Okay. Okay, let me just take the photo now. Smile, everyone. Okay, that's one screen. I'm moving to my second screen, so please keep smiling. Okay, and I'm down to my last screen. Smile, everyone. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you after 5 minutes for the next session. Bibiana?
Yeah. Now is time to wait because the next part is perspective from Latin America, and is the panel that there are Xiaomi, Ericsson, Viviana, and Christina. Thank you very much.
Hi. Time is up for our 5 minutes break. Can you give me a quick thumbs up if you guys are back from your quick break? Okay, nice. I see some thumbs up. Okay, carry on with what Bibiana said. We are actually doing a panel discussion on the perspective from Latin America. And this time we have a panel of youth from the Latin America region, namely Erison, Bibiana, which was our moderator just now, Xiamira and Christina, both from Colombia also. I would like to start off first with Erickson. Erickson, are you there? Can you give us a short introduction of who you are and what you're doing in Gibbon?
Hi, everyone. I hope you are all well and you had a nice break. My name is Erison. I'm from Gibbon Life, also from Gibbon, Brazil, and the steering and global Gibbon steering committee. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Gretel.
Nice to meet you, Erickson. Next, Xiamira, Xiaomi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi,
Good
can you just give a
everyone.
quick intro?
Good morning, everyone. Here from Colombia. Nice to meet you all. I think I've seen quite, familiar faces in this path of many years with our engagement in giving. So yeah, just appreciation for all of you.
Nice to meet you too, Xiang. Next, our previous moderator, Bibiana, you want to give a short intro?
Yes, hello for everyone. I'm really happy to be in this panel to talk about the COP16 and the Colombia and the perspective and the challenge. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Last but not least, Christiana, are you there?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm happy to be part of this event, and also I'm from Colombia, and it's my pleasure to talk with all of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, let's get on with our panel. So my first question is for Erison. So the first question is, what is the significance of COP16 happening in the Latin America region? What are the opportunities and challenges that come about it?
Thank you. And this is a great question because I think it's important for all of us from the region to reflect a little bit of what this means for our country, our communities, and also individually as well. And the way I see it, I think it cannot be overstated the importance of having COP16 in the LAC region, because first, it places the spotlight on what can be probably the most biodiverse region on the planet, from the Amazon rainforest to the marine ecosystems that we have in the Caribbean region, for example. It's just unique. You don't have anything like this in the world anywhere else. And this biodiversity is, of course, crucial for ecological balance, but also super important to the cultural living that we have in the region and for societies as a whole. And talking about culture, as the host country places a special focus on the people for this COP, I expect, for example, for us to see deeper community involvement in the implementation discussions. And as you know, LAC is a region, there is home for many indigenous communities, traditional populations who have worked to preserve biodiversity for generations. And this is a great opportunity to include their knowledge, cultural practices, and way of living for basically to allow us to live in harmony with nature, or as close as possible to that. And at the same time, we have a great opportunity as youth and other people to talk about it, and we'll have a whole session about it as well, how we can do and be meaningful in our actions in COP16. But it's a great opportunity for us, youth in LAC, to engage more directly with policymakers. For example, if we didn't have that opportunity during the NBSAP's processes, or if the engagement wasn't actually so they didn't value the voices as much as we should have. So this is a great opportunity to use the convention to identify and engage with these officials as well. And at the same time, I think for us, it's an amazing opportunity for us to know each other and boost cooperation in the region, so we can know and connect different networks and find synergies and work together to basically have a bigger impact. And finally, I think moving all of that, it's just a great opportunity for us to highlight to the world the regional priorities. So, for example, we have lots of challenges related to deforestation, habitat loss, and then you have risks such as the ones that Seth already mentioned related to market-based approaches, which are dominant in the region right now. In Brazil, for example, the concept of bioeconomy today basically equates to market-based approaches, nature-based solutions, carbon projects, and biodiversity is always something put to the side when you think of nature-based solutions, because they often focus on carbon. So this is a challenging greenwashing. Allied with that is also a challenge that SEPA has raised before. And this simplification of biodiversity is it's a really complicated issue as well, because you don't have the same understanding about biodiversity throughout every society in the LAC region. So this is also something that we can keep on our minds. And other challenges I see specifically in the region is the difficulty for our countries to walk the talk, because, for example, as many of you already know, for several weeks we had fires across the Amazon region, and especially in Brazil, this is often the result of people opening land for cattle and soy. So you have a strong lobbying from the agriculture sector. This is a huge challenge in Brazil, and I think this is a challenge for other countries as well. So we do need proper monitoring mechanisms and resources. So COP16 in Latin America is the perfect scenario for us to, for everyone, from all the countries in the region and civil society, to actually put these challenges to the forefront so we can find solutions globally to them as well. Another thing that I can talk about briefly, I think would be resource constraints. We have a huge opportunity to have more representatives from local communities, from indigenous peoples in this COP, but at the same time, and it is a little bit easier for everyone to engage since it is in the closer to these communities, but at the same time, we do need resources to do that. So it's another, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity for us to raise a spotlight on that as well. Resources are still pretty much needed, especially because with the political instability that we see in the region, it's often challenging for us to see government for continuing a policy or a commitment that they eventually make, for example, during COP16. And it's also a little bit of a role to, with the proper resources, to encourage the governments to follow with what they have committed. And the last thing, I think it relates to capacity building, because even if we are in COP16 with bigger numbers, I'd say, we still need to have representatives with a strong understanding and have the trainings to have the skills to meaningfully participate in the negotiations. And initiatives such as this one, it's amazing. So thank you everyone for actually coming here today. And I think this is a perfect place for us to engage before actually jumping into the negotiations and see how things go. So thank you.
Thank you, Arisa. It seems like the Latin American youth have a lot of opportunities and a lot of ways to collaborate, a lot of challenges, but also a lot of solutions that might come out from this COP and this opportunity. Next, we are moving on to Xiaomi, who is the coordinator for Gibbon Colombia. So your question is, what do the Colombian youth think on the role of leadership of Colombia at this COP16? How is Gibbon Colombia mobilizing for this COP16?
Thank you, Gretel. That's an amazing question indeed. I can provide a lot of background, history and context also, because I think that Colombia is the host of these negotiations as a result of historical mobilizations of young people, indigenous peoples, different social actors, Afro-descendants, women, even children. So it's not surprising for us, to see that we are the host of these negotiations, this time of the Colombian context, because not only the internal dynamics that we have that have been reinforcing the necessity for the country to step up as a leader for climate and biodiversity, but also I would like to recognize the work that people in the ground has been doing for decades, including young people, including Gibbon Colombia. When we left Canada, COP15, we didn't know that, we will be the host. But in that time, that was also a historical moment for us, for young people in CBD, Colombian young people in CBD, because we were the biggest delegation of young people attending some kind of these negotiations. We were almost 10 people. So imagine, it was a good, COP16 was a good moment for the young people engaging in biodiversity from Colombia to the world, but also I see it as the backbone of now the responsibility that we have and that we assume as a chapter leading the whole constituency engagement for COP16, despite of several challenges that we have internally, because you all know that Colombia took the presidency of the negotiations in a context where we usually, and the governments usually have 2 years to prepare these COPs, etc. But we only have 11 months indeed to make it happen as a country. And that also, of course, influences our work, because as a constituency, we also needed to not even double, but like triplicate or more our work and positioning here in Colombia, because the interest for these negotiations is huge, guys. You will see it here first, in first hand, that Colombia people want to participate in this COP, that Colombian people, of course, we're very proud of our mega biodiversity, and we see it, this very often, that we are one of the most biodiverse countries, mega biodiverse countries on earth. This is a very historical moment for us to, as I said first, to celebrate the victory that we are hosting this, because of the previous and past, work of different movements and civil society leaders to, to make aware the country that Colombia has to lead on biodiversity, because it's a mega biodiverse country, indeed, second one per kilometer square and everything. So beyond that richness, we also have a lot of knowledge for the conservation of the ecosystems, for the defense of ecosystems. And not by surprise, also, Colombian people that are defending this ecosystem have sacrificed a lot of, their lives, the living in dignity and a lot of these issues. So when we have the phrase of peace with nature, we are one of the perfect examples of how to make peace with nature, but also the good example for conservation, but also not good example on what is, what making peace with nature also constraints for the people in the front lines, because it's not easy to conserve and defend ecosystems when most of these people are living in poverty and don't have the guarantee of the rights, the right to life, the right to mobilize, the right for a peaceful assembly. So it's very important that we take into account that you guys are mobilizing to a land of beauty, a land of a lot of knowledge, but also a land that has been suffered a lot to have these ecosystems and the biocultural heritage that we have currently has come with a lot of yeah, with a lot of indeed suffering, you know, with a lot of sacrifice for a lot of people standing for biodiversity for centuries. So I wanted to first, you know, start by that reflection, because I think it's important that we understand that this is a critical moment for Colombia, not only to portray its leadership globally, but also to recognize that the most important contribution that we have made to the world is because of people in decades preserving, conserving, and using sustainably the ecosystems that now are a pride for the majority of the people. And Colombian biodiversity is not also important for us as Colombia, but also for the whole planet, right? Because the planet depends in our mega biodiversity, Brazilian biodiversity, the mega biodiverse countries, everyone, right? It's critical. So we see this as the moment that can also help us mobilize more easily these kind of solutions, these kind of contributions that young people do for conservation, that people in the ground do for conservation of biodiversity. Sorry. We also recognize that Colombia, as a mega diverse country, has a responsibility, a key responsibility, and an opportunity to showcase biodiversity conservation, at the same time how biodiversity is really needed to be integrated in social justice, peace building efforts, gender equity, human rights, among others. This is like what I think it's very important that we also, you know, have as a vision, that is not only negotiations, or these are not only negotiations for the technical issues of biodiversity, but also the social issues of biodiversity and the impact that biodiversity has in the life of people, in the life of livelihoods, and also in the territory, because we have like these concepts very clear when we mobilize for biodiversity. So this COP definitely will have that social agenda very clear. You also guys know that it's been a long time since Latin America is not hosting these kind of negotiations, being the CBD or the UNFCCC in our region. So therefore, we're, you know, using this opportunity to really mobilize and move more victories for people in the ground of the region also. So it's a great opportunity for movements to be strengthened, to movement to intersect with different global movement, because we have been working here mostly, you know, in silos. Like,
Tell me, you need to slow down a little bit more, okay? Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
And even I'm not an English speaker, guys. But sorry, I speak it very
It's
fast
alright.
because it's Spanish. But but well, yeah, that there is a bit regional opportunity too. Erison will host us in Brazil next year for climate negotiations, and I think that's indeed something very relevant, like the importance of regional level of climate and biodiversity synergies. It's good that we start with the COP16 biodiversity negotiations here in Colombia, and then we have to bridge it with the climate. This is very necessary. So we also elevate the importance of the CBD. And I think that's another consequence of Colombia leading these negotiations. CBD is receiving like way more influence and importance in the global agenda. So this is very nice, because as someone that has been participating in CBD COPs, you know, in many years, I feel like, you know, our CBD negotiations were, you know, always like shadowed by the climate. I feel like this is one of the first time that we are seeing biodiversity is also receiving way more important than as usual. And that's also something very positive that we really hope Colombian leadership understand this critical moment to make the decisions and the outcome decisions from this COP16 way more ambitious than we have seen in the past. I think also it's critical because it's the COP that will define the monitoring report, the monitoring and reporting framework, the COP that will have to decide more on the global benefit sharing of genetic resources, peace with nature, finance, gender, young people, and how we really have to make it to that monitoring and reporting framework with clear indicators, and conservation 30 by 30, so many issues that are critical and that we are expecting Colombian leadership to really tackle these issues with ambition and with the recognition that those decisions that will emerge from COP16 are decisions that will have a direct impact on people. And we will see the people. That's also something very important. We will see thousands of people mobilizing for this COP, which also, will make the governments to feel more pressure that they have to come out with ambitious and transformative outcomes from this. I think that we also are calling for the recognition of the young people leadership on this, because as I said, we also feel that we are the host of this COP, because also our work and our engagement in helping Colombia, to be a more critical leader in the CBD negotiations. We have been always there, guys, since the first day that giving became a constituency. We have had Colombian youth engage in this. So it's very good for us, because it's like Colombian youth really know what is at the stake of the COP16 negotiations, even before the government and other actors. I say this very freely between you and me, guys, because we have this barrier that a lot of people didn't really know exactly how COPs are or work and etc. And giving Colombia are all experts in this, because we have the chance also to mobilize young people, to influence negotiators, to have our national positions, to attend COPs, to deliver statements, to deliver side events, etc. So we're claiming for that recognition also. Because of that, we have been working very closely to, make it happen, to have giving recognized at all scales, and also because of its mission as constituency. And I'm very happy to say that despite challenges, we made it happen. Giving is at the core main governance for youth issues in COP16, together with the Ministry of Environment, with the Ministry of Equality. We are the ones mobilizing the official youth agenda for the COP16 negotiations. We are also developing a national summit for biodiversity and climate, because it's a very important moment for young people. We never had the chance in the past to, convene so many people for biodiversity. So Giving Colombia is co-organizing a national youth summit, as well as the Global Youth Biodiversity Summit that you guys, of course, will attend in Cali. And we also have 4 side events in Green Zone, in Bloom Zone. We are also organizing a simulation of COP16 for the young people of Cali, as well as we have been working with more than 20 youth organizations to contribute to the MBSAP, Colombia MBSAP, and the youth chapter. So just to say the most important things that we have been doing, but we have been indeed supporting this mobilization and ECOI, that this is the COP for peoples, of peoples, but for peoples, and Giving Colombia has played a key role on that. So rest assured that everyone will be waiting for you guys, because they already know a lot of what we are doing and mobilizing here. And thank you also, for the opportunity to share these national insights.
Thank you so much, Xiaomi. Okay, for the next question, just a quick reminder to keep it to 10 minutes, and then speak slowly so that our interpreters can have the time to interpret. But I appreciate it, Xiaomi, with all your insights for the Colombian youth. And it's so interesting that they're gonna have so many things upcoming for them, and also for the global youth, so many things that we can participate in. Next, for Bibiana. So your question is, tying on to what Xiaomi has said about peace with nature, what are your thoughts on it as the COP16 theme?
Okay, my question is about the peace with nature.
Yeah, what do you think about it?
Yeah, okay. This is really important, because it's the part of this COP, and its harmony with nature includes the balance between humans being the nature, and is this a cause of good living, as a full life transcends the life of humans and includes the values of the life, and not only thinking in humans, that thinks in the life of animals and the plants, and the harmony between into animals, plants, and humans. and it's necessary create an amazing economy because this model of economy is so bad for the nature. All the time think in resources, nor in the life, nor in the really life. And it's necessary moving to circular economic system and reduce the emission, and need to change the chemicals and the problems of the war and toxins to the plants that cause millions of premature death, and it's necessary create a new jobs for example, to keep the nature. Park rangers is so important, but there are a lot of problems in the national natural parks. And refers the nature with the nature, the peace with nature is a state with harmonious coexistence and sustainable balance, and it's necessary to respect the environment and respect the life of the other parts of the life in the planet. For this reason, it's really important this kind of young groups, because it's a part of the awareness, and it's necessary work for environment and change the habits and change the mind or use the things in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bibiana. I from your sharing, I sort of absorbed that it's a lot about peace, a lot about harmony, about collaboration, and like what we mentioned last time, like stopping the same old practices and actually doing something new. Yeah, appreciate it, Bibiana. Yeah. Next for Christina. What for you should be the deeper impact of the COP for Colombia and its young people? Christina, are you there? Okay.
Here, sorry.
She's there. Yes.
Thank you so much. Sorry, my internet connection. Could you please repeat the question, please?
Okay. The question is, what for you should be the deeper impact of the COP for Colombia and for young people?
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the impact of COP16 on Colombia and its young people should be transformative, should be certain around the environment use, and also the peace and the protection of biodiversity of Colombia. Initiative in Colombia now we redefine the humanistic relation with the nature, and also is focusing on the biodiversity and peace. Most directly involved with the country young, especially who are from Afro or indigenous community like me, and we have a deeper connection with the land. For young people, also the transmission of the greener economy must be create opportunity, like mentioned Viviana, and also opportunity from education and training, like today. Also, we have to create job sustainable industries, ensuring that the economy transition not only combat the climate change, but also address the social inequality and protect the natural heritage. What is important also is Colombian leadership should be unify the climate and biodiversity agenda. We are doing that, and also we believe that this is crucial for the taking, and also we are thinking in the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Young people play as a central role, and is this in this discussion, and as we are one of the will be faced the long-term impact. That's why we are part of this discussion, and also we are really fast. We have really impact on the decisions we are going to take. What we also can agree is we have a really potential to establish a framework where the young people are really activity participant and share the sustainability quality, and also maintain the culture respectful for the future of Colombia and the world.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. I'm hearing a lot about inclusion for Afro people in the Latin America region, and also a lot of collaboration to ensure that the triple bottom line is met. Yeah. We'll be moving on. Thank you for the 4 speakers for sharing their thoughts on the respective questions. We'll be moving on to our Q&A segment. So do write down on the chat any questions that you have for any of our speakers. Maybe in the meantime, I shall ask my question. For all 4 speakers, roughly give me a short answer on, as youth in the Latin America, what do you personally feel about the COP coming to your country or your region? How do you feel about it? Any of you can start first.
Okay, maybe I can just start by saying that, wow, I have felt everything, guys, from happy to anger to excited, nervous, anxious, everything, all emotions combined in different states through the year. So yeah, but now that we are just like 3 weeks away, something like that, or just even less, I'm excited and nervous and anxious. But I'm happy that we will see each other very soon. So this is what, is keeping me, keep the faith.
Yes, I think it's an honor to be in Colombia, and because the people wants to know the importance of biodiversity of Colombia, the different birds and different animals that you can see. And I think it's really important for the country, but it's anxious. It's really nervous because it's a really important event, but wants to be happy and it's good event for everyone.
Okay. Actually, there's a question that came in from the chat. What are your main expectations for youth in COP16? Anyone can answer that question. What are your main expectations? Oh, sorry.
I think I can start
Ayrton?
with that one. For me, my main expectation is, first and foremost, we have done lots of work, as Shamara has shared in the chat. And the biggest expectation for me is actually that we're able to showcase all of this work, all that we have done, and the importance of our inputs into the national process, and actually our inputs for the COP, the event specifically. And then the second thing would be basically, I expect to have lots of conversations with many folks in the chapters in the region, but also from elsewhere, for us to really tie together our networks and see from there what we can collaborate on, what we can do to even have even bigger things to show at the next COP, but not for the conferences itself, but also understanding what work we can do in between them, basically. So those are my two biggest expectations, I'd say.
Okay. There's another question which I think is for Xiaomi. What has been the main challenge leading up to COP16 for the given Colombian chapter?
Paola, that question, oh my gosh, I can give a whole lecture on this. But just for the sake of time, I'd say, well, first to even make it understand like the policy government people, you know, that constituencies exist, they work, we have a clear mandate, we have been working for years, even though some negotiators, you know, they know us and etc. Since COP is too big, you know, it's very like different levels of organizing internally, I mean, in the government. Some people at the very high level, they know this, but others, you know, that actually do the work, maybe they don't have the, you know, the full experience of participating in COPs, understanding the role of constituencies, civil society, etc. So one big challenge indeed was for us to make them aware that, you know, Giving Colombia indeed is one of the oldest chapters and very active. So it wasn't easy for them to, at first, for some people, like to navigate the importance of engaging young people, and that this doesn't have to happen in the, I don't know, later, because some of them were like, maybe later, you know, and like, no, just now, because people really need to start preparations for the first day. So the first day we accepted the presidency, right? To be the host of the COP16. So that challenge, but also the challenge, of course, of financial resources, very common in our region, you know, that to mobilize people, you also need resources. Since to, I mean, or even how to say it, until today, we are still, you know, like working to secure funds for young people from Colombia and also globally to attend this. So it's a lot of work, etc. So some dynamics, you know, as usual, but I will just say that of course, till today, we have advanced a lot. We have organized different events that were not planned at the first, you know, since the beginning of the year. But then, since our work, our mobilizations, as even training a lot of people and sharing the whole information for not even young people, but a lot of different movements, you know, that wanted to prepare for COP16. Because of this, and our work, we have indeed gotten more than at the first day the government wants us to, you know, to do with them. So I think it is good. We have this path of, you know, we have small victories to celebrate, but it has been very challenging, of course. And you know that we are a volunteer-led organization and networks and movements, and therefore we have been working every day, guys, as a volunteers, and the whole team that you see, more than 10 people since the first day that Colombia accepted this challenge of being the host of COP16. So it has been a lot of work, but yeah, we are very soon, you know, to the realization of everything. So hopefully, yeah, this month will be the most critical, but will be also, you know, the end somehow of this, and then the start of a new youth movement for biodiversity that will be really strengthened after COP16 here in Colombia, in the region, and globally.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. The next question, how do you think COP16 will help the challenges that you have in protecting biodiversity here in Colombia? Maybe this time we can give Bibiana or Christina a chance to answer.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Very
The
well.
question,
Could you repeat, please?
yeah, the question is, how do you think COP16 will help the challenges you have in protecting biodiversity in Colombia?
What I say with the COP16, if like young people, we have, and also I saw the question, one question in the chat, is talking about explore our diversity. What is so is we have a really big opportunity to explore. And also we have the opportunity with the pavilion, pavilion to show and doing showcase in our country and also connect with the social ecosystem. I throw the John Pavilion will be it's open now the opportunity for all people who want to participate, and also we have the dedicated space from the John leader, and this pavilion will be allowed to highlight the unique ecosystem of Colombia from the Amazon and also with the top of our country. I think this is important. Also information that you have to know, and what I invite you is follow of our space in Instagram and Facebook, or be connect with us, because that will be gives you the opportunity to share and to obtain more knowledge, connect with the initiative and also solution with the work we can also create, like young people and young leader people.
Gretel, and
Thank you so much.
I think it's important this question is necessary for Colombia work for the ecosystem and the loss of biodiversity, because this is a really big problem for Amazon. There are deforestation in Brazil, Peru, Colombia, deforestation areas. For this reason, this is the opportunity to talk about the loss of biodiversity and talk about the importance of ecosystem and move for actions, not only talk. It's necessary at this moment change the habits or do more investigations or invest in this kind of programs.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Are there young Colombians involved in the preparation for COP? This question, I think you can see, even for us, our capacity building, like Bibiana is part of it. She's our moderator just now. So yeah, she's part of our preparation for COP. And maybe how about for the COP itself within the government? Has the Gibbon community been part of it?
Well, we are in that. Yeah, guys, we are in everything. Come on, like people know giving because of us working here since a lot of years. So we're doing everything: informative sessions, everything, mobilization, training, replying to thousands of people. Oh, guys, every day we have like at least 30 messages of people. How do we participate in COP? So we are working a lot. But in the government, not officially, but just like I think some weeks ago, we have someone that it will be supporting the mobilization officially, but it's something that we have been pushing for a lot of months. So it will be just for a few months, okay? But giving is also there. We've been pushing for that, and we are also now like receiving at least, or will receive at least a formal recognition for 3 months, something like that. So yeah, but at least at the end, we made them aware that this work also needs recognition beyond only, or maybe not only the resources, but also the recognition of our work, because as I said, most of us are working every day for this, and we need the formality that this experience will be recognized and etc. And this is what we are aiming for mostly. Yeah, but we also have Shannon, who you met in Japan. Shannon also is part of the mobilization team for COP16 since 3 weeks ago. But yeah, we made it. At least we made it.
Okay. Really excited that you guys made it, and you guys have been working so hard behind the scenes, collaborating with us here globally in Gibbon, and we really appreciate it. Okay. Next from Esperan. What activities is Gibbon planning in relation to the COP theme Peace with Nature. How does Gibbon intend to highlight this theme? So for this, you can actually look forward to our subsequent few sessions that we'll have a bit of a thematic session. If I'm not wrong, it might be addressed during our recorded lecture. And also, all these recordings from our sessions will actually be sent to you later in the day. Yeah. I also want to ask the same question to Harrison about the Latin America community. What does the Latin American community been up to for the past few months leading up to COP?
Oh, thank you, Greta, for that question. For sure, I can't speak in detail about all of the individual chapters and collectives we have working hard to make the COP happen in its best way possible, even outside of all the work the Colombian youth is actually doing. But at the same time, we have, for example, in Brazil, we have webinars to actually build capacity with the team. We have a coalition basically that comprises the delegation, the youth delegation to COP16. So we've heard many different youth collectives working biodiversity in Brazil to actually have a united sort of policy points that we want to bring COP16. At the same time, we know that, for example, going a little bit up in the globe, we have in the LAC region, not in the LAC region, but the Caribbean region specifically. They're also moving with webinars. For example, next week we'll have one basically talking about, okay, so what's COP16? What is its relevance? But at the same time, how it connects with our region specifically. For example, for the Caribbean, then you have Caribbean youth actually making this connection. And for the other countries such as Paraguay and Argentina, we have a new chapter growing in there as well. They're all moving and trying to build capacity within their networks for us to have as many people there, but at the same time, as many people aware of what other people are doing and how we can work together as a region to have more work being done in between COPs and that we can, for example, learn from each other how to engage with government and other civil society actors, because we have to work together to overcome all of the challenges that I spoke before and that CEFA also highlighted and others who spoke.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe a closing question for you guys. Do you have any expectation on how the other youths all over the world can actually help you at this COP, be it the Latin America region of Colombia? How can we, the global side, help you?
I'm gonna jump just to say that if you can come early, come because there is a lot of work to do in Cali. So that will be very helpful for those that are able, to come days early in an early arrival. Please do it. We are planning to be in Cali very soon because we need to prepare everything on site for the youth summit and everything. So it's quite a lot of work. So you're in the position to come early, let us know so we can, start engaging you directly with few tasks on site. Also, you can really help us spreading on the many opportunities we're working on that we just launched days ago, and that we need more people, to reach it. Like, for example, these capacity sessions, but also, the Young Pavilion, but also we have one opportunity for Cali-based youth. So if you know some people in the region or in Colombia that, have a connection with Cali youth, we have a very amazing opportunity together with WWF Colombia that is just made for Cali-based young people. So yeah, And also we are doing a lot of posts and activities here in Colombia, in the region, globally, webinars, etc. So it really helps us if you can follow Giving Colombia, if you can share that Giving Colombia is, leading this mobilization and everything, because we need you. We need to show the global strength of giving, because already here in Colombia, people know what the Colombian youth, but it will be very nice if they can also feel the energy of the global youth backing up this Colombian support and Colombian work here. So that will be very, very helpful. And if you have any events or stuff that you need, okay, it's important that we have Colombian people. It doesn't have to be necessarily me or Bibi. I mean, it can be others. We have a lot of young people really with a lot of knowledge, expertise, and that really deserve, to be in the spotlight. Connect us with, share it. We have some press release too, if you can help, to share with your media in your country, in different organizations that really help us to spread the Colombian leadership on this, young people leadership, and also, of course, the Latin American leadership. But I mean, let's use this opportunity to really help those voices that has been silent from these global processes for years. And yeah, let's shift the power and put them also in the stage. So yeah, those are things that will really make the difference. And please make sure you all follow us, okay, in every social network that we are, and help spread. I think tomorrow we will launch the Global Youth Biodiversity Summit call for participants. So this is our moment to show our global force, okay? All this stuff that I mentioned. And sending us love, of course, and energy.
Definitely, for all the regions, we will definitely send you guys love and energy. I posted on the chat Given Global social media. From there, you can actually go and look for on Instagram for Given Colombia, also to give them a quick follow for update. Yeah, that is it for our panel, and thank you so much for all 4 panelists for speaking about Given Colombia and speaking about the involvement there and what is up to come. So for session 5, which is held next week on a Saturday at the same timing at 1:30 UTC time, we'll be speaking about youth action at COP16. So basically what youth can do, both maybe online or offline, about COP. And also do remember to fill in our attendance sheet so that we know you guys are here. It's already in the chat that you guys can fill in. Other than that, thank you so much for joining our capacity building today. And thank you so much for attending our different calls, and see you guys next week.
Thank you for our moderators today, and thank you for our interpreters as well for this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.